is magic and magicians. Sihr wa sahara. In this world, there's magic and there's magic and there are magicians. However, they do not harm anyone except by the permission of Allah. He said, وَمَنْ سَحَرَ مِنْهُمْ وَاسْتَعْمَلَ السِّحْرَ وَاعْتَقَدَ أَنَّهُ يَضُرُّ وَيَنْفَعُ بِغَيْرِ إِذْنِ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ بِهِ. And whoever practices magic from amongst the people, that he cast a spell on someone, and he used magic on someone, and he used magic, and he believes that it harms or benefits by other than the permission of Allah, then indeed he has disbelieved in Allah. He has disbelieved in Allah. وَإِذَا وُصِفَ مَا يَكْفُرُ بِهِ أُسْتُتِيبُ. If it's been described, and he's talking about how this is from the jurisdiction and the powers of the Muslim ruler, or the ruler of the country, of the land. And if he's been informed, has reached the authorities of what he's done, if he does this type of act, especially in regards to the usage of the shayateen, of course, that he disbelieves by that practice, then repentance is sought from him. Repentance is sought from him. فَإِن تَابَ وَإِلَّا ضُرِبَتْ عُنُقُهُ. And we talked about this before, that there is from Ahl Ilm that says otherwise. We'll talk about this in detail, inshallah. For verily, if he makes repentance, and if that's not the case, then the ruler and authorities would execute him. He would execute him. ضُرِبَتْ عُنُقُهُ. It said his head is struck, meaning he's executed. وَإِذَا وُصِفَ مَا لَيْسَ بِكُفْرٍ. However, if it's described the type of magic that he uses, not disbelieved, أَوْ تَكَلَّمَ بِمَا لَا يَفْهَمْ نُهِيَ عَنْ. So now if you notice, Imam al-Sabuni is breaking down the categories as we just said. There's a type of magic that's absolute kufr, disbelief, and to remove one out the fold of Islam. And then you have magic that doesn't. Even those considered what? From the destructive major sins that we'll talk about inshallah. All these details are going to come, don't worry. If he brings something that is not considered kufr, but is considered fisk, as we talk about how illusionary magic, for example, someone takes his hand and might play a card game or do something illusionary. As we talked about, this type is not considered what? Disbelief, even though it's a major sin, that one should not do it. That's from the examples. This is what we're going to give, inshallah. If it's described to the leader, it's reached the leader of what is not considered disbelief, however, he might speak some words that's not understood, then he is prohibited to do that. And if he goes back to doing that, then he does receive a punishment from the ruler, of course. وإن قال السحر ليس بحرام وأنا أعتقد إباحته وجب قتله لأنه استباح ما أجمع المسلمون على تحريمه. Then if he says, if sihr, now if a person says that magic is not impermissible, or rather it is permissible. If a person says if magic is not, magic is permissible. There's nothing wrong with that. And I firmly believe that it is something lawful. If he does this, he said it's obligatory that he's what? That he's put to death or he's killed by the ruler, of course. لِأَنَّهُ اسْتَبَاحَ, because he made lawful what the Muslims have a consensus upon it being unlawful. So you'll find that Ahl Sunnah, that they put this in some of their books of Aqidah, of them believing in the existence of magic, even though they are firmly upon, or they are firmly against it, and how it is considered disbelief. Listen to what the great Imam Sheikh Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali, that he mentioned in this regard. He says, أَنَّ هُنَاكَ سِحْرًا وَسَحَرًا. He says, of course, we believe there is magic and there are magicians. This is an affair which you'll find that the Kitab and Sunnah has informed us of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed about what happened with Sulaiman And we know that Sulaiman, that he had control by the permission of Allah of the jinn. He had control over the jinn, of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given power to Sulaiman to control, of course, the jinn, who commanded them to do certain affairs, and they carried them out by the permission of Allah. Also, you'll find that Sulaiman had command of the wind and other different affairs in which we'll talk about, inshallah. You'll find that the great Imam, Shaykh Rabi'i, he goes on to say that you'll find that the people from the scriptures, who are the Jews, accuse Sulaiman of practicing magic, that he was given these different types of powers of control over the jinn and certain birds, that he did not have control over them except by magic. You'll find that is in the ayat which we talked about from last class, and he said that this is incorrect. And the one who accused the great prophet Sulaiman of this, you notice that he said, قَبَّحَهُمُ اللَّهِ, Allah Ta'ala, that he uglified them. That Sulaiman did not have control over all these affairs, such from the jinn or the shayateen, or from the birds, or from the wind, and other than those matters, except by the permission of Allah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him, not by magic, in which the shayateen had tricked the people in fooling that Sulaiman, that he partook in what? Magic. This is incorrect. So that's what we talked about from last class. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in his book that the Jews had accused Sulaiman of practicing magic, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala freed him from that. If that wasn't the case, rather, the shayateen disbelieved. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he belied their claim, and he freed Sulaiman. And Allah clarified in his book that he did not practice magic whatsoever. And this was a fabrication upon Sulaiman. And you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies in his book and makes clear that magic is disbelief. Magic is kufr. That magic is disbelief. And this is a clear text in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says in his book, in Surah Al-Baqarah, that the shayateen disbelieved. They were teaching the people magic, and that was when that which was revealed upon the two angels, Harut and Marut. But you'll notice in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the shayateen, they disbelieved. So it's described as the one who practices magic as falling into disbelief. We said from last class the different types of magic. We said the first type is to use the devils. It's the shayateen. The second is the usage of concoctants or liquids. Also, we talked about another type of magic which is called illusionary. Illusionary magic, which is an illusion. You'll find that they call it takhyili. The takhyili, like we said, is illusionary. And that was from the magic in which you'll find the Sahara or the magicians of Fir'aun. This is what they practice. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about how the magicians during the time of Fir'aun, that was the magic they used. And it was not the magic for the usage of the devils or the shayateen. That's why you'll find in the story what happened with the magicians. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about them of saying, فَإِذَا حِبَالَهُمْ وَعِصِيُّهُمْ يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِمْ مِنْ سِحْرِهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. He said, for verily you'll find from the isi, or the different types of magic that they use, whether it was with different types of ropes or what have you, to trick and fool the eye. That was given illusion from their magic that these different things were moving. But it was not what? It wasn't the magic of the shayateen here. It was the magic which was considered illusionary. It was an illusion to fool and trick the eye. So many different ayats in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about what took place between Musa and the Sahara Fir'aun, and the magicians of Fir'aun, Even Allah Ta'ala described in His book about the Sahara that they came with tremendous magic that fooled the eyes of the people. فأوجس من نفسه خيفة موسى قلنا لا تخف إنك أنت الأعلى. As we know the story, what happened with Musa, when they came on the day of the Eid, as we talked about in Surah Taha, where it says that the Mu'id was Yawm al-Zina, that the day where they gathered to challenge Musa with the Sahara to Fir'aun, the magicians of Pharaoh, that it was Yawm al-Zina. Yawm al-Zina, everyone, was the day of the Eid. It was the day of the Eid. When they gathered, and we know that Musa had seen the type of magic they used, which is illusionary, until Musa even himself had a little bit of fear. So فَأَوْجَسَ مِن نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةَ Musa. That Allah Ta'ala had gave that reassurance to Musa. Don't be afraid. You're going to be on the top. You're going to be dominant. وَأَلْقِ مَا فِي يَمِينِكَ تَلْقَفُ مَا صَنَعُوا. And we know that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed to Musa to throw the stick and watch as it would dominate the magic that they had utilized to fool the people. And you'll find that that which they did was the plot of a magician, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they will never be victorious. Whereas the magician will come, he will never prosper. You'll find that the Sahara, when they seen when Musa had thrown down, when he cast the stick, and you'll find that everything they used, that stick had what? Swallowed everything that the magicians had what? Had cast and utilized to try to fool the people. So much to the point as we know that the magicians, they became afraid and they believed in Musa and Harun after they seen what took place in regards to the staff or the stick of Musa. At the end of the story, you'll find that there's also an ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about how they made tawbah, where Fir'aun had encouraged them to use magic, which is a clear evidence and proof to show that illusionary magic is still considered from the major sins. It's still considered from the major sins, even if it is illusionary. So it's not just the fact that whether or not a person used the shayateen or they do use the shayateen or what have you. Even if it's something that deceives the eye, then it's still considered from the 7 great destructive sins, based upon the fact, if the level of it, because we said, from the levels of magic which will nullify Islam. It will nullify Islam and remove you from the fold of Islam. Then you have other types of magic, which is considered fisq or udwan, which is considered fisq, a major sin, and is considered transgression upon the people and against the people. And from them, like we mentioned, it said, from the illusionary magic and also from the other types, such as what they call aqaqir. Aqaqir, or what they call adwiya, where people might use some type of medicine, or if one would utilize some type of drug or concoctant. If that's that type of magic, then it's considered transgression and sin. Upon both instances, you'll find that the punishment for it, whether a person believes or disbelieves, that the punishment for it is that one is put to death. You'll find that that is the actual what? Capital punishment. If the authorities, if it reaches them, not the common folk, the authorities, that they discover that this person is using magic, then like we said, that they will be put to death. Because magic is something of corruption in the earth, harming innocent people. And like we talked about the dangers of magic, magic can even what? Drive a person insane. It can make them lose their mind, it can even kill them. So this type of magic, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, like we said, all of it is considered kufr, whether or not, or based upon, will it remove you from the fold of Islam, or whether or not you'll stay in the fold of Islam. All those affairs are still considered what? Dangerous, because we said ultimately the person is put to death by the ruler if he finds out that the person is practicing what? Magic. You even find that Musa, when he said to the Sahara, he said to them, He said, woe to you, do not fabricate a law upon a lie, in which you'll be taken by punishment. For verily the one is in a state of destruction, whoever fabricates, meaning fabrication upon a law. فَتَنَازَعُوا أَمْرَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ وَأَسَرُّوا النَّجْوَى. To the end of the story, which we'll talk about at another time, of what happened between Musa and the magicians, because there's a little bit more benefit in the story what took place between them. There's some things that are very, very extraordinary what happened with the story between Musa and the Sahara, which we'll talk about later, inshallah. Type. Keep in mind that I said, like I said, everyone, there's a type of magic which is called illusionary. Is it time? Father, who is the? Where is Amir's not here? The other Amir, he wants to call the other? اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمدا والوصية الفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود الذي وعدته. طيب, quickly just to go over. A person would say, they would think that what we just mentioned, that magic, all of it is considered, of course, kufr. Does a person lead the fold of Islam or not? I'm going to just mention quickly what Ahl Ilm mentioned in this regard, especially what Sheikh Rabi' even mentioned in this matter. He said, a shahid, that the mu'allif, you'll find an Imam al-Sabuni that he even mentioned, the madhab al-Imam al-Shafi'i. He says how Ahl Ilm, that they differ in regards to the hukum or the ruling of the magician. From them they say he disbelieves. From them they say he's a kafir. From amongst them they say he is a kafir, he's a disbeliever. He says, and they declare him to be an unbeliever by just merely teaching and also learning magic. Also those who are upon the madhab of Imam Ahmad from the Hanabilas say that likewise. I'll say it again. Are you writing this down or are you playing with your nails? The author that he said in regards to the magician, the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i, that's what we're going to lay down. And also some other information, additional information. You'll find that Ahl Ilm generally that they differ in regards to the hukum, the ruling in regards to the magician. From amongst them say that he's a disbeliever. Rather you'll find from amongst Ahl Ilm that saying that he's a disbeliever, just merely learning it and teaching it. And they are the Hanabila, Imam Ahmad. The madhab of Imam Ahmad says that a person who learns magic and teaches it, he has what? Left the fold of Islam. He's a kafir. He's an unbeliever. You'll find that from Ahl Ilm that say he's a disbeliever generally. Doesn't matter what type of magic he practiced. That was also a statement of Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, and also in the narration of Imam Ahmad, who said the same thing. Doesn't matter. If he practices magic, left a hold of Islam, generally. Then Shaykh Rabi' goes on to mention and says this. He says, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i gives details. He says, لا يكفر إلا إذا أتى ما هو كفر وشرك. He doesn't disbelieve unless he commits the type of magic that is disbelief in polytheism. As for if it's not considered that, if it's not disbelief or polytheism, then in this case he's committing an act which is haram, which is unlawful. However, he does not what? Disbelieve. So the Imam al-Shafi'i is saying here that if he commits magic, then, and if it reaches the authorities would act and investigate. Give us the description of your magic. If it's given a description for us of what would necessitate disbelief, he says similar to what happened with the people of Babel in the story of in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 103 and number 104. That happened with the story in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 103 and 104, who are the people of Babel, which we said last class where, everyone? I said this last class. It was a place in Iraq. Babel was a place in Iraq. Especially in what we know today is where of Kufa. Kufa is where, everyone? In Iraq. What happened with Suleiman in the place called Babel was in and located today in Iraq, of course. Type. You'll find that he said the type of magic, and I want everyone to pay close attention to this. You guys yawning and you're tired today. So you guys these days, I'm 42 years old. Some people only have 4 hours, 3 hours sleep. You guys, we gotta get you guys. Last week you were. You think I wasn't paying attention? Listen. Listen to how he connects the dots. So now in Babel, or this place called Babel, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned his eyes start eating and biting your nail. Ayah number 103 and 104. In Babel, which is located in where is it located, everyone? In Iraq. You'll find from their ambiguities they used to draw close to the stars. Used to draw close and worship the planets and the stars. As we know, during the time of Ibrahim, that was the fitna of his people, who used to be the people of Nimrod. The people of Nimrod, that they used to what? Worship the stars. They used to worship the Kawakib. They used to worship the stars, and they used to have the belief that the stars made things happen on the earth. Notice you'll find, as we'll talk about this a little bit later, this was also considered a form of magic. Yes, it was. I'm going to connect the dots later, don't worry. You'll find that the belief in the stars was considered a type of magic, especially if one believed that the stars had any effect or influence on their life. That was also a type of magic. Why? Due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, all this is going to come, مَنْ اقْتَسَبَ شُعْبَةً مِنَ النُّجُومِ فَقَدْ اقْتَسَبَ شُعْبَةً مِنَ السِّحْرِ زَادَ مَا زَادَ. That whoever attains knowledge or branch of knowledge of the stars, meaning that the stars have some type of influence or impact on one's life based upon its position, or whether or not it's nazil or tali', whether they ascended or descended, or they're in a certain type of position, that he said acquiring this type of knowledge is acquiring a type of knowledge of magic. Is it clear what I'm saying? Acquiring this type of knowledge is acquiring a type of knowledge of magic. And the more one learns about it, the more he increases in learning more magic. The people of Babel, if you look in Surah Al-Baqarah, that the people of Babel, this was their fitna. That they used to what? Draw close to the stars. They used to draw close to the stars. And believe that the stars, like we said, made events transpire in the earth or in the dunya, whether it be generally amongst certain catastrophes that may take place, whether it be pertaining to a drought or famine or certain land being destroyed by a hurricane or wind or what have you, or something taking place individually or specifically in one's life from, for example, of having a bad love life or having something very harmful happen in his life or in his health or with his family or his children or what have you. All these was the fitna of what? Of the people who obtained knowledge of the stars, where they said that it had some impact over their lives. This was a type of magic. The point I'm trying to mention is, everyone, this was the type of belief of the people of Babel, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah Al-Baqarah and the ayats pertaining to Sulaiman. In the ayats pertaining to Sulaiman, you'll find in that same ayah, if you go to the Mus'haf, it mentions about the city of Babel and what was their fitna and what the type of magic they practiced. And the shayateen, what they taught the people. And what they informed of whether or not that magic, rather they accused of Sulaiman of practicing magic. When they say that they found that book under his what? Under his throne. You'll find that they try to say that book that was under his throne, in which you'll find that Sulaiman had a writer. His name was Al-Sif. That the writer Al-Sif, that he used to write the wahi, the revelation for Sulaiman. All this is in the same ayah. Everything I'm talking about is all in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 103, 104. It's all there. It's on one page. You'll find that Prophet Sulaiman had a writer. His name was Al-Sif, with a sad, not a sin. Al-Sif. He used to write the wahi for Sulaiman. They say in some of the tafsir, as we said last class, that the shayateen came in the book, that Al-Sif used to write the revelation, and he filled it with magic. He filled it with magic, and the shayateen came and filled it with magic. Excuse me, I'm sorry, everyone. Not Al-Sif. Al-Sif did not write the magic, I'm sorry. The shayateen wrote the magic. They polluted the book, filled it with magic, and it was buried under the throne of Sulaiman, of the kursi of Sulaiman. After Sulaiman died, they said that the shayateen told the people to dig up the book, because you'll find in the tafsir, as Ibn Kathir mentioned, that the shayateen were not able to draw close to the throne of Sulaiman. And if they draw close to the throne or the chair of Sulaiman, they would burn up. That's why they would stand back. They had now inspired the people to dig up the book that Sulaiman had what? Hidden. Or that he hid from the people. And when they digged up, when they had removed the book from the ground under the kursi of Sulaiman, they opened the book and found that it was what? They found that there was wahi mixed with magic mixed with it together. So then as a result of it, they started accusing Sulaiman of what? Magic. That's the reason why it says in the ayah, Sulaiman did not disbelieve, however the what? The shayateen disbelieved. Is it clear what I'm saying? He's memorizing. Tayyib. So that was one meaning, as what I said last class. Another meaning is that during the time of Sulaiman, as we talked about last class, from the time of Sulaiman, that the people used to practice magic, that the shayateen were encouraging the people to practice magic. Sulaiman came out to the people, gathered all the different types of scriptures or the different types of pages that had spells in it, gathered them together, and he gathered them and he hid them from him. And he put it under his chair. That's another narration. He was hiding it from the people in order to save them from kufr, from disbelief. So he went out and gathered everything they had. Gathered it, put it, and hid it under his what? Under his kursi, under his throne. When he hid it, then the shayateen, they say that the shayateen has said, look under his chair, you will find an abundance of what? Spells and magic. Until when they found it, they thought that Sulaiman was the one that what? Actually practiced magic. due to the fact that all these different types of pages was buried under his what? Under his throne, under his chair. You'll find that they say that this is the reason why he had so much power. They tried to say that Suleiman had power over the devils, or he had power over the jinn, and all these other affairs due to magic. That's because of the different types of what? Scriptures or writings that they found under his throne. طيب. The people of Babel, that they used to draw close to the stars. Imam al-Shafi'i, that he said, whoever has the belief, or that magic, that it can what? That it can benefit or it can harm. Notice Imam al-Shafi'i is talking about the stars in this context here. Because he's tying it all in as it all being together magic. He's talking about the stars, and he's talking about magic, and he's putting both of them together. So if you believe that the stars have some type of an effect where you think that they can benefit or harm you, based upon their certain position of how they are, whether they be high or they descended or what have you, that's a type of magic. If you believe that the stars conduct in this manner, meaning they have some effect over your life, then a person as a result of it has disbelieved. He's not the fold of Islam. Not only that, that's a type of disbelief, and it's a type of shirk. It's polytheism. So, the belief in the stars, acquiring its knowledge, believing it can conduct in its existence, generally or specifically, in this earth or in this dunya. And if you utilize the shayateen to harm someone, that will remove you from the fold of Islam. Listen what Imam al-Shafi'i goes on to say. Now listen to this last part. وَإِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْبُخُورِ وَنَحْوَ هَذِي الْأَشْيَاءِ فَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. However, as you know that the magicians, some of them, that they try to use like some type of smoke, some type of bukhur, or something of some type of like mystic, like smoke. You'll find that some of them are involved in, that some of them might use, or if he says for something pertaining to some type of medicine, or anything similar to that, or something illusionary. He said this is haram. However, he does not lead the fold of Islam. However, now listen to this part. Yu'azzar. However, he still can receive a capital punishment. Just because a person does not disbelieve, if he was in a Muslim land, does not necessitate that he cannot be put to death. Is it clear what I'm saying? I said this last class. Just because, and I'm talking about if these affairs reach the authorities, just because a person, I'll say it again, just because a person does not disbelieve, who is not removed from the fold of Islam, does not mean that you commit an act that it could necessitate by that act death, even though you did not leave the fold of Islam. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear? Not all acts, like we said, a person that if he does it, might not necessitate leaves the fold of Islam, but at the same time, he still could be put to what? He still could be put to death. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And like we're talking about, these are from the affairs of the authorities, from the rulers of the country, and their delegates who carry out the law and the law of the lands. This is not for the common folk. We're just given a hukum in Islam based upon it being was established and legislated if we were in a Muslim country or in a land, in order to put in our minds the high magnitude of these sins, and how tremendous they are, and how devastating and how damaging, and how also destructive they are, which the Prophet ﷺ said in the narration which is going to come next, inshallah. طيب, listen to what Sheikh Rabi' goes on to say. Sheikh Rabi' says in this last part, he said, هذا هو مذاهب العلماء في حكم الساحر أن كثيرا منهم يكفرونه منهم Ishaq bin Rahawayh, Imam Ahmad, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, rahimahumullah. He said this is the madhahib of the ulama in regards to the ruling, in regards to the magician. A lot of them you'll find say that he is a disbeliever, without any exception. From them is the great Imam Ishaq bin Rahawayh. Ishaq bin Rahawayh is who, everyone? Is Imam Ahmad Shaykh. As it was asked Imam Ahmad about Ishaq bin Rahawayh, he said, you're asking me about Ishaq, you need to be asking Ishaq about me. Is it clear what I'm saying? You're asking me to talk about Ishaq and give a tazkiyah for Ishaq, to give a recommendation for Ishaq. Rather, it's the opposite. Go ask Ishaq al-Rahawayh. Am I okay? Ishaq ibn Rahawayh was Imam Ahmad Shaykh. طيب, Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, or Imam Ahmad, or Abu Hanifa, or Imam Malik, all of them say without any exception that a person who practices magic is what? Is a disbeliever. He says, however, in regards to Imam al-Shafi'i, يكفر الساحر إذا أتى الكفر. He said that the sahir is a disbeliever if he commits an act of disbelief. As for if he does not do an act of disbelief or the type of magic that he uses, for example, some type of smoke or some type of some ambiance where there's a lot of smoke in the room or what have you, or something weird to that effect, or other than that, which is, for example, what we just mentioned, such as illusionary magic or what have you. If he does this type, they say he does not disbelieve. But if he does an act of magic, which is disbelief from the worship of the shayateen or anything similar to that, here in this instance, he is left the fold of Islam. Is it clear what I'm saying, or is it not clear? But like I said, it's very dangerous because, like we said, you'll find from Ahl Ilm saying there's not an exception to the rule. If a person practices any type of magic, whether it's of usage of the shayateen or not usage of the shayateen, then you'll find that they do not give an exception. So it could be that affair. It could be now that in regards to what they mentioned, that could be correct. But at all circumstances and in all cases, we know that magic is what? It's still from the 7 great destructive sins where a person should stay far away from it. Which I'll talk about in regards to Harry Potter and Blaine and David Blaine or David Copperfield or they call, what's his name, David Copperfield. I think it's another one called Blaine if I'm not mistaken. Chris Angel, all these other people. And watching Harry Potter and all these other different matters that I've seen people that they let their children watch, not realizing these affairs are very, very dangerous. You understand, everyone? These affairs are very dangerous. Especially now to show to our kids in a manner that is just what? Playful, and there's nothing wrong with that. Magic is from the most deepest, lowest levels of disbelief, in which the Prophet ﷺ described as the 7 great destructive of all sins, which is in your books. It's in the next narration, which we'll talk about. Matter, you want to read it? Go ahead and read it. We're about to stop anyway. Next page. Wake you guys up. No, read the narration of Jabir. Read the narration of Jabir. I'm sorry. Well, go ahead, read it. First, read the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said they believe in Jibt, in the Tawheed. That's the reason why I said to read it before the class. Go ahead. No, the next one. They believe in a Jibt and a Tawheed. Jade. We already talked about this last class. Keep reading for me. Read loud. Jade. Jibt is sihr. One of the meanings of Jibt. Is this just the only meaning of Jibt? No. There's other meanings of Jibt. Right or wrong? Then we say there's other meanings of the word Jibt. The word Jibt. Jim, ba, ta. Jibt. Does it just mean magic? What's the other meanings for the word jibt? There's other meanings. It can mean shaitan, ahsant. طيب. Fortune, ahsant. Jibt can also mean a fortune teller, or anyone that claims to have knowledge of the unseen. We'll talk about that inshallah. All these affairs we're going to cover inshallah. Numerology, don't worry. Numerology, the belief of the Astrodamus, all of it is considered jibt. All of it is considered jibt. Astrodamus, numerology, astrology. And even with the astronomers, you have to watch it. A lot of people even think in regards to space. We'll talk about that in a certain time. Even with the astronomers and what people believe in regards to the solar system, you have to watch it. Yes, you do. Because it's also been affected by polytheism and the belief of magic. Yes, it has. Especially in regards to what you'll find where people set up the solar system where the sun is the biggest thing in the middle and the planets revolve around it. That's a belief of the polytheists. Is it clear what I'm saying? We'll talk about that later. Yes. Because you'll find how the polytheists, from them who used to worship the sun, and they used to glorify it. They glorified the sun, believing it was the greatest thing, and it was the greatest star. We'll talk about that inshallah. Don't worry, it's going to come. But at any rate, the word jibt, from them, the meaning of it is shaitan. From them is sihr. From that is kahana. Anything that now, or a person claims to have knowledge of the unseen, it is all considered jibt. Jibt. Even people when they draw lines on the ground, and they would say that certain things would take place based upon how they would draw lines on the ground. There's a whole chapter that's going to come about and talk about that. That also is included in that numerology of certain numbers, where people claim to have knowledge of the unseen, that certain things were going to take place based upon certain numbers. We'll talk about all that that's going to come. All of that is impermissible. Stay away from it. And if you believe that these affairs have knowledge of the unseen, that will take you to the level of disbelief. Is it clear what I'm saying? If you claim that something other than Allah has knowledge of the unseen, that is disbelief that will remove you from the fold of Islam. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Prophet ﷺ said that the person who comes to the Arraf, the person who claims to have knowledge of the unseen, that reads your hand and tells you certain things are going to happen in your life, just merely going to him, you ain't even believe what he said, then the salat will not be accepted for how many? 40. 40 nights? What the Prophet ﷺ say? 40 nights. What does it mean, 40 nights? Does that mean you leave off the salah for 40 nights? No. You still have to pray. However, you get no reward for 40 days or 40 nights. No reward for your salah, even though you still have to perform its obligation. That is with regards to the person who just goes to him. What about if you actually believe in what he says? You understand, everyone? So listen in regards to what we're saying. The jibt is of different types, what we just mentioned. So it's not just restricted to what you just see in your books, right, everyone? Keep going. No, you didn't finish. That was after the statement of Jabir.
Oh.
That's what I said.
Jabir said,
Tawheed. Poor of Tawheed. If you notice in your books, everyone, about Jabir ibn Abdullah, that the Tawheed, they were fortune tellers and soothsayers that descended upon them, that the shayateen descended upon them. He says, in every neighborhood or in every area from the Bedu. You'll find that during the time of the Prophet, ﷺ, of course, before the revelation, before the advent of before the Prophet ﷺ was sent as a prophet and messenger, that you'll find that the shayateen used to descend upon certain tribes. And that the magicians and the people who claim to have knowledge of the unseen, they were the one who took charge of the affairs in order to stop different types of problems that took place. They used to refer their affairs back to them. The kuhan, or the people from the fortune tellers, they the ones that used to have this type of power. They will come into the different tribes and they will solve their problems. Even though they were receiving some type of satanic inspiration from the shayateen. And they were considered Tawheed. They were considered a Tawheed. Even though they used to what? Claim knowledge of the unseen, still at the same time, the shayateen used to descend upon them and give them information. Even though, as we'll talk about inshallah, even though the information had lies in it, which we'll talk about inshallah. But sometimes a bit of it will have some truth in it, even though it was mixed with a lot of other different lies. Which we'll talk about inshallah. And that's something which the shayateen that they descend upon, which we'll talk about, in which the stars is utilized to shoot them down. That the shayateen do ascend to the heavens. And they ascend in order to hear what the angels know of something that's been predetermined or decreed for someone or certain affairs in this dunya. And they try to hear it, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the stars, shoot the devils down. Which we'll talk about, that's going to come inshallah. Notice that Jabir ibn Abdullah and Umar al-Khattab, all these, like we said last class, all of them are not restricted to just these one meanings, as we said, right everyone? All these are just different examples. But Jibt, Tawhut, Tawheed, all of them have different what? Types. And they're not just restricted to what we said. Here's the hadith of Abu Hurairah. Loud, loud. Stay away. There you go. Read loud. Loud.
They asked, "Oh, Allah's messenger, what are they?" He said, "Search for Allah, magic, hidden life with Allah, has made unlawful, except as is required. Pursuing
So it's required.
pursuing the wealth of an orphan, fleeing from the battlefield, and slander innocent believable."
Jade. The Prophet ﷺ said, avoid the 7 great destructive of all sins. And they asked the Messenger of Allah, what are they? He said, number 1, polytheism. It's one of the 7 great destructive sins. And the second is what, everyone? Sihr. And that's what we're going to talk about next class. Fine. So you notice from the madhahib that we just mentioned, we said that the madhahib does not give an exception in regards to the one who practices magic. He's put to death, rather he's disbelieved in all levels. It's like we said, the madhab of Imam Ahmad, Abu Hanifa, and Imam Malik. You have no exception. A person that practices magic is disbelief. يُكَفِّرُونَهُ عَلَى الْإِطْلَاقِ. In all cases. Is it clear what I'm saying? The only one that gave the exception, like we said, was Imam Shafi'i. They said that the person has to be investigated what type of magic they practice. If it was the type of magic that involved the usage of the shayateen, or if it was the type of magic that is used for what? Even in regards to the stars. And acquiring knowledge of the stars, and what have you, and harming a person by the devils, that person is disbelieved. In regards to what is magic that is not disbelief, then what? Then we said that a person did not leave the fold of Islam, and we gave examples of this. For example, the person practiced what they call, what everyone? Illusionary magic. If you practice that illusionary magic, gives an illusion or what have you, deceives the eye, this is considered a what? Major sin. Even if he practices this type of magic, he said that the actual punishment for it, one still could be put to death by it. One can still be put to death by it. There's an athar of one of the salaf I'm going to bring next class where this did happen. where he was showing as if he was removing his head, or what have you. We're going to talk about this narration. Or he was acting as if he was doing something illusionary when it was not real. Until that particular Sahabi came up to him and actually what? He told him he actually hit his head and slapped his head off his shoulders. He said, now, put your head back on your body if it's true what you're doing. And he did that in order to what? When he's practicing this type of illusionary magic. All this we'll talk about, inshallah, is going to come, inshallah. It's in rather. Just put it right there. Matter of fact, I'll just read it right quickly. Let me read this quickly. There was a narration by Jundub ibn Ka'b. Now listen to this. As we know, Hafsa had killed that she had killed a Jariyah, a female concubine that had practiced magic on her. And then she confessed that she practiced magic, meaning that concubine. There's a narration on Jundub ibn Ka'b that he killed a magician. As it comes in Imam al-Bayhaqi in his Sunan, من طريق ابن وهب أخبرني ابن لهيعة. I love the Asanid. As we know, Ibn Wahab was thiqa. Who's Ibn Lahi'a? Who's Abdullah? Who's Ibn Lahi'a? Ibn Lahi'a is a famous narrator in the chains of narration. I'll just give you guys a quick benefit of Ibn Lahi'a. Ibn Lahi'a, he was from those narrators that used to write the narrations, and he was very accurate and precise when he wrote in his books. If he narrated hadith from his books, he was considered what? Reliable. One day, Ibn Lahi'a's books burnt up. Books he wrote hadith in. After his books were burnt up, what happened? They say that he mixed his narrations up. Instead of him going to the level of being trustworthy in his narrations, he descended at a level where he just became considered da'if, weak. However, his weakness was not what? Extreme. Meaning if there's another narrator that came in and supported it, then it raised it to the level of Hasan. But Ibn Lahi'a, if he would give a narration from his memory, or after his books burnt up, he was considered da'if. Not a severe weakness in the isnad. However, a weakness that is what? Somewhat light, if another narrator come and came another narration to support his. But else, if Ibn Lahi'a narrated a hadith after his books burnt up, he was considered da'if. Is it clear what I'm saying or not? طيب. Here in this narration, it says that Ibn Lahi'a narrated upon Abu al-Aswad أن الوليد ibn Uqba كان بالعراق. He said that Walid ibn Uqba, that he was in Iraq. يلعب بين يديه ساحر. Now listen to this. He says that there was a man, that was a magician that was playing amongst them. He would hit كان يضرب رأس الرجل ثم يسيح به فيقوم خارجا فيرتد إليه رأسه. فقال الناس سبحان الله يحيي الموتى ورآه رجل من صالح المهاجرين. Now listen to the story. He said that he would strike the head of the man and then they would scream. He said then he would stand up and he would return his head back to him. Until the people said, SubhanAllah, he gives life to the dead. He gives life to the dead. وَرَآهُ رَجُلٌ مِّن صَالِحِ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ. There was a man that seen him from the righteous ones of the ones who made migration, meaning the Sahaba. So they looked at him. فَلَمَّا كَانَ مِنَ الْغَدْ اشْتَمَلَ عَلَى سَيْفِهِ فَذَهَبَ يَلْعَبْ لَعِبَهُ ذَلِكَ فَاخْتَرَطَ الرَّجُلُ سَيْفَهُ فَضَرَبَ عُنُقَهُ. He said the same time, tomorrow, meaning the next day, that the people gathered. Then the Sahabi that he gathered his sword. He said the man started playing his usual what? His usual play, what he would do. Then the Sahaba, or the Sahabi came amongst the ranks with his sword. and struck his head. And he said, if you're truthful, bring yourself back to life. وأمر به الوليد دينارا صاحب السجن وكان رجلا صالحا فسجنه فأعجبه نحو الرجل فقال أفتستطيع أن تتهرب أو تهرب قال نعم قال فاخرج لا يسألني الله عنك أبدا. It says in this narration, after he struck his head, it says Al-Walid ibn Uqba, that he commanded that the person will be put him in jail. He says that he was a righteous man. He was known for righteousness. He was put in jail. However, Walid had liked what he did. It said Faqal, when he came up to him, he says, are you able to just leave? Just get out of here. Just escape, just run. He said, yeah. He said, get out and go. Don't ask me Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't ask me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not ask me about you ever. The point of the matter is, brothers and sisters, what we're saying here. That the person, when he practiced here, was some type of what? Illusionary magic. He wasn't giving death to anyone or life to anyone. This person was not able to do any of the sort. This was an illusion that he was practicing. But he still, as a result of this type of practice of magic, he was what, everyone? Put to death. So it doesn't matter whether you practice magic by the usage of the shayateen or what they call illusionary magic, it's still all considered what? Upon some of the aqwal of al-ilm, they say it's kufr, but based upon what Imam al-Shafi'i gives a little detail. But at any rate, one can still be put to death by either one. Is it clear what I'm saying? As we know, a had can be the punishment, prescribed punishment by law, and what they call ta'zir. Ta'zir can also be death. A lot of people don't know that. The ta'zir by the hakim, by the ruler or the judge in the court, could be death. Because you have what they call a had, and you have what they call a ta'zir. A had, everyone, is a prescribed punishment by the book of Allah in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. A had is called a prescribed punishment. A ta'zir is a punishment that goes back to the ijtihad of the what? Of the judge. It's open for him to what? It's open for him to see what is befitting or suitable for that particular situation, what will be a deterrent to stop the person from doing that evil act. It could be death. A lot of people don't know that. It could be. It goes back to the ijtihad of the opinion or what the hakim, of the judge, that he sees befitting. If he sees befitting death, then it could be death. So that's the difference with what they call a had and a ta'zir. You write that down. The difference between a had and a ta'zir. What's the difference? Again, what is it? Go ahead. From the Qadi. A had is a prescribed punishment in the book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. A ta'zir goes back to the ijtihad of the hakim or the Qadi. Goes back to the ijtihad of what? The judge, or whether that particular delegate from the actual ruler, who is the judge in the courts, what he sees befitting as a punishment, which could be a deterrent for that person or those who do similar to what he does. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's the difference. A lot of people think a ta'zir doesn't have to be death. Yes, it can. A ta'zir can be death. Oh, so he's going to get a ta'zir. A ta'zir can be death. Tafadhal. Kahana. Kahana is just like fortune telling. Fortune telling. Kahana. Or predicting. No, kahana is fortune telling. A kahin is a fortune teller. Kahana is like predicting something. That's what they call the people takahun, of what they pertain to news. Yeah, takahan, to predict. Huh? Say it again. Say it. That's just based upon, in certain affairs you'll find in the solar system, when science has been affected by polytheism. Certain things, are just inaccurate. And certain things are just theories. You have to realize that. Certain things is polytheism and astrology, or astronomy, excuse me. Astronomy. Certain things are polytheism, such as, like I said, the sun being in the middle of all the stars. That's a polytheistic ideology. It is. The sun being the biggest star in the middle, and all the other stars are small, and they all revolve around it. To what? Glorify the sun. That goes and agrees with the belief of the sun worshippers. They used to believe that the sun was the biggest object in the middle of everything because they used to glorify it. You understand? So it creeped into astronomy. It creeped into it. So now they think everything is small that goes around it, and the sun is the biggest thing in the middle. Just give me a second. You understand? That is polytheism. That's the belief of the people of polytheism, which they now put into astronomy. I keep saying astrology. Astronomy. Astrology is still Sarah. Still kufr. At any rate, that's just merely something that has actually crept in the studies of astronomy. Then you have what they call just mere theories that they make. Theories, as we know, if you just go back to the word theory, theory means that it could be wrong. Eventually it could be now discovered that it's invalid. It's wrong. So they made theories. It comes basically now that it comes out that we're proven wrong. So they come now with these different types of theories, such as that the sun does not move, rather the earth moves around the sun, and that these are the things that actually move. To me, Allah knows best, that might be part of what the polytheists used to believe. Because they're the ones, like I said, they used to say that the stars revolve around the sun. As in the Quran, as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His book and also in the authentic sunnah have clearly shown that they are the things that move. The sun moves and the moon moves. That comes in the Quran and the authentic sunnah. That the sun moves and the moon moves. Not the opposite. You understand? Absolutely. It's in the Quran and it's also in the authentic sunnah. The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is described as the sun and the moon. They move. They're the things, they're the objects that move. Ahsant. وَكُلُّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. It's an ayah. All of them are in the what? Are in the heavens moving. It says the sun moves and the moon moves. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which comes in Sahih Muslim, saying that every day when the sun sets, it sets under the arsh of Allah. Yasjud tahta al-arsh. So that shows that the sun moves. Tafadal. So a lot of narrations. Ahsant. Also, the narration says that the sun, that the day of resurrection will not be established until the sun rises from where? From the west. But that's based upon what I just said. Because one day the sun will prostrate under the arsh or will ask permission. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, no, go back where you came from. And that's when it will rise from the west. So that shows that the sun moves. The sun moves. That's the aqidah of Imam Sa'di. That was what Sheikh Uthaymeen mentions. And from them, Sheikh bin Baz says that the sun moves. And that the moon moves. Not the opposite, huh? Let's talk about the people of Nimrud. Ahsant. Jay. I know. He said the same thing as I. Abu Iyad Amjad says the same thing as I. He said that the sun moves, the moon moves. It moves. He said that the polytheists, they put the sun in the middle. And they glorified it. That's why they make it the biggest thing in the solar system. and all the other planets are small, and it's a form of glorification of the sun. Because everything of the little small stars, it's like what does it look like? It looks like they are what? Glorifying the sun. The little stars are small, and all this, the sun is huge. It's a form of them glorifying the sun. Because they were sun worshippers. A lot of people that was pertaining to astronomy, they were people of polytheism, especially with the Greeks. They were heavily involved in polytheism, and people who used to study astronomy, especially during that time. Astronomy, who was involved in stars and thinking of looking at the stars, a lot of them used to worship them. And from them, like we said, they used to glorify the sun, make it the biggest object, and they used to worship it. And they used to glorify it. So that's why they made the planet small, and the planets move around it, and the sun is still in the middle. These were things that we were taught when we were what? Young, and they were all wrong. Absolutely. Horoscopes, all that's considered sihr, magic. من اكتسب شعبة من النجوم فقد اكتسب شعبة من السحر زاد ما زاد. It's a hadith of Abu Hurairah. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever attains knowledge or branch of the stars, he has attained a branch of knowledge of magic. And the more he increases in learning it, the more he increases in the magic. Jayid, just leave the stars alone. Leave it alone. I don't understand why people are so fascinated by the star. The Prophet ﷺ has clearly mentioned to us, it comes in the book of Allah, that these stars are only made for three things. Other than that, you'll find that people and these non-Muslims are wasting their time trying to discover is there other life or extraterrestrial life or other planets. What is that going to prepare you for when you die and you put in the grave and on the day of resurrection? I'm asking. What is it? Nothing. The stars only been made decoration for the heavens, shoot down the shayateen, and to give directions to those who travel. No more, no less. You try to go out and branch out, and still to these days, the much technology that they have acquired, and they still have not even begun to even scratch the surface of space. They think they're going far. They will never have enough time in their life to ever even just barely scratch the surface. It's too vast. Each heaven to another heaven is the distance of 500 years. That's just one heaven to another. One heaven to another is the distance of 500 years. How in the world do you think that all the responsibilities that Allah has given us, of obligations, of duties, to take care of our kids and pray 5 times a day, and then pray Sunan, then pray Witr, then fast Ramadan, then try to take care of our responsibilities of work, and try to teach our kids, and try to teach and spend time for your family. All these obligations, and you want to worry about journeying to a star that's probably 500 years far distance, and worrying about some stupid extraterrestrial life. You understand? Waste of time. Clearly says in the kitaab-attawheed, As-Sadusi of the Imam al-Bukhari put in his book, Ta'liqan, whoever goes beyond those affairs, what we just mentioned, you have burdened yourself which you have no knowledge of. Transgress the bounds. That's it. Khalas. Just use the stars and what Allah has created them for. Don't now try to go beyond what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in his book, which is to utilize them to direction, shoot down the shayateen, and decoration for the heavens. That's it. As far as I keep saying astrology, astronomy and being involved in those affairs, if it helps out technology in regards to helping out the people of certain affairs, no problem. But now when you're trying to journey out in space for like Star Trek and all these other different things, to try to journey out to where no man has gone before, all these affairs, brothers and sisters, is a waste of time. Waste of time. Is it clear what I'm saying? We have too much in life, and as far as responsibilities here in this dunya, which takes up our lives. Now, keep trying to tell these youth, slow down before you be an adult, because you don't want to be an adult. You don't want to be grown, trust me. Being grown is very difficult. And you'll find as you get older, there's more responsibilities, and there's more weariness, and there's more headaches. So being at the case that you have, those type of responsibilities suffice you. Is it clear what I'm saying? Don't worry about anything else about these stars or what these non-Muslims want to now so-called say eventually we would discover. No, you won't. In your lifetime, you will never be able to discover it. They think they have gone far. They have not even scratched the surface, nowhere near scratched the surface. Nor will they probably be able to scratch the surface. It's too vast and too beyond and it's too complicated. Tafadhal. Last thing, because we got to pray. People with it. Absolutely. It's something that is way beyond your capacity. From one heaven to another heaven is the distance of 500 years. How many of us live 500 years? One heaven to the next is the difference, just one heaven. The distance of 500 years. 500. You won't live that long. طيب, we'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت. أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.